Welcome to another great episode of the Contractor Business Builder podcast. Why do some contractors get steady leads month after month while others are stuck relying on only word of mouth? The difference isn't luck, it is marketing systems. Chris Lonergan from Footbridge Media has seen it all, and he's here to break it down. What separates the winners from the ones struggling to stay busy? How are you doing today, Chris?
Doing great, Derek. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. Yeah, excited to dive into this marketing. So essentially important to contractors to be able to charge what they're worth, not stress about those slow times that inevitably, ups and downs in the business. So can you share a little bit about your background and how you got into marketing for contractors?
Sure thing. So Footbridge Media has been around for over 2 decades now. I've been with Footbridge Media for about 13 years now, a little over. And I started on the website development side of things, web design. I've designed over 1,000 websites for our contractors over many years. And since then, I've gotten more and more involved and more interested in all the different parts of what makes marketing work for contractors or home service pros. And that niche specifically is all that we do at Footbridge, and it's all I've done for the last 13 years. So
Mhm.
it's been very fun to kind of get into the gears of what makes things work for some contractors, why it doesn't work for others, and kind of pulling apart and diagnosing and making those custom marketing plans is one of the most interesting parts of what we do, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And marketing is something is constantly evolving, changing, and switching. But I feel like there is like business in general that, things are moving faster than ever, but there are just these foundational models, ideas, concepts that really stand the test of time and are just always relevant. And then there's the kind of the strategies or the specifics of, details is what changes and what good marketing people like yourself can stay on top of. What foundational marketing system should every contractor have in place, before they maybe start spending a whole lot of money on marketing? What's some foundational system or systems that they should have in place?
I think that it's really important to have that core, and it's number one. It's a free thing you could do to start off. I think having your local presence solid is a really smart beginning process, and that is your Google Business Profile. That's something that
Mhm.
contractors can sign up absolutely for free for. The moment you get your license, the moment you decide you're starting marketing, starting a business, I think it's one of the first things you should do, because when anyone does a search for you, whether it is someone that you've gotten a lead from because of Facebook ads, or it's a referral you got, a warm referral from someone, no matter what,
Mhm.
if someone's doing their due diligence, they're going to Google you, they're going to look you up. And very likely the first thing that's going to pop up is that Google business profile, that knowledge panel that shows up on the side of Google. If you don't have one, number one, it looks sketchy. But number two, it's a great place for you to highlight exactly why you are the right choice for somebody. You've got
Mhm.
Google reviews and photos you can put up on there, your own updates that you can add there. You can link to your social accounts there. So it's a really smart core jumping off point that every contractor business really needs to have. It's
Mhm.
kind of a non-negotiable at this point. If someone Googles you and they don't find that, they're probably going to look for somebody else at that point.
Yep.
Especially if they type in a search for a contractor and they see somebody who's got more reviews than you, or that you don't exist in that space at all. That's a
Mhm.
pretty prominent part of the internet real estate at this point, and you have to have a place there. So
Yeah.
it's free to start. It takes
Mhm.
you could do a lot of there's a lot of software that we can talk about that helps with that, but at the end of the day, just a little bit of bravado, a little bit of signing up for some
Mhm.
stuff for yourself, talking to clients, getting pictures posted, and getting reviews. It's a really
Yeah.
simple way to get started, and it's super important all the way through for the entire business run that you're going to have.
Yeah, definitely. So extremely critical. Marketing as business, it's all about trust and the trust you instill. And before people generally will even talk to you or call you, they're gonna Google you or search you or find you online. And if it doesn't, like you said, they're always going to be doing comparisons between you and other contractors. And the thing is, not, I mean, having a lot of reviews definitely great, but there's also like a velocity factor because if, you think like, oh, I've got 20 reviews or 30 or 100 reviews or whatever, that'll help you right now. But if your competitors are getting, 5 reviews a month or something like that, it's really about you need that system in place beyond just like trying to reach a certain number of reviews. It's really about making sure you've got a process and system and tracking how many of your clients are actually leaving reviews and following up with them to capitalize on the great work that you've done and those relationships that you've built with clients. So Footbridge Media has been around for 20 years now, which is amazing. That's definitely a long, solid track record for a marketing company. What makes your approach different? What do you think has led to the success of Footbridge Media, and how do you guys differentiate yourself from other agencies?
Well, number one of the biggest differences is we are very niche down. We only work with contractors and home service folks. There are lots of other industries or other marketing agencies rather, that say, oh, we work with contractors, but they also work with law firms, or they also work with medical fields. Or for us, all we do every day is live, eat, and breathe the home services space, the contractor marketing space. And because of that, we kind of accidentally, through osmosis over time, have learned a lot about how contractors work, about what
Mhm.
they're looking for, and probably a little more importantly, how their customers are also searching for and trying to discover those folks. We joke that
Mhm.
like we know way more about tankless water heaters than most marketers do, just because we talk about this stuff all the time with our contractors. We have to be well
Mhm.
versed in it to be able to sell it, to be able to create content about it. So that's something I think is very unique for us, is that we're so niche down that really helps
Mhm.
with our systems that we have in place. So there's, for a lot of other agencies, if you go to an agency and you say, I want you to run my marketing, the first couple of weeks, couple of months for most agencies is a bunch of research and R&D and figuring out how does your business work. We already know
Mhm.
that. We already service contractors all throughout the US, a variety of industries. So we
Yep.
already have a really solid understanding of what a contractor needs. It really helps to reduce our costs, number one, and we pass it on to our folks.
Mhm.
But also number two, it means we can get jumping and moving on things faster. I think that's a
Yep.
really big key differentiator for us.
Yeah, through our conversations, thing like that, I feel like you guys have a nice mix of super competent in your niche, as you mentioned, plus just friendly, down to earth, and just know you make it simple and easy, straightforward for the contractor. Where I find some agencies, it's a little bit of a mirrors and smoke kind of thing sometimes, and with analytics and whatever else. So yeah, I definitely appreciate that. Now I know you guys have rolled out some new services. Google local service ads is sort of the next step in the Google realm, if you will, and getting, having good advertising, as well as an in-house CRM to be able to track the leads and a number of other things. Can you speak a little bit about what those are and how they help contractors?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we've just in this year we've released, like you said, local service ad management and setup services, and we've developed our own new CRM. So basically, a place where contractors can go and they can store their customer data, but they can also generate invoices. They can send quotes. They can actually accept payment processing, online payment, credit cards through the system. And really, we started all that based on our customers' needs. That's how Footbridge has kind of grown this whole time. When Footbridge Media first started, Aaron O'Hanlon, who's the owner here, started it as basically a paper newsletter referral company, and then over time, people kept asking, can you do this for us? Can you do that? And it's grown into a full service agency now. And that's how we started with local service ads. We had so many contractors saying, I need help with this. I can't manage this on my own. Can you help us? And we've had great results so far. We've had really good feedback. We started
Yep.
in beta at the very beginning of this year to kind of run the program through its paces. But we've had
Mhm.
contractors with some really strong success in improving their lead flow through LSAs, lowering their lead costs through LSAs, which is
Yeah.
great because local service ads show up at the very top of Google. They're above other ads. They're above the map pack, above organic. So if you can
Mhm.
get really solid placement there, it really helps out our contract. And the same
Yep.
with the CRM. I know a lot of what you do, Derek, is about processes and structure. And for a
Mhm.
lot of, especially newer to the industry, newer to running a business, a lot of our contractors don't have a CRM in place. They don't really have a way to consistently store and organize their customer data, a way to consistently outreach to clients with quotes, aside from making something separately and emailing it or texting it or doing whatever they're doing that day.
Mhm.
So having a CRM has been really helpful for our clients to help streamline their processes, to make it so that they don't have to worry about cobbling together multiple pieces of software or figuring out what works. Since it's included in our program costs, it's also incredibly attractive for that reason for contractors. If they don't have anything,
Yep.
it's a very easy way for them to start. And
Mhm.
we found a lot of positive responses, positive feedback on this very
Yep.
beginning part of our CRM.
Yeah, I'm definitely a big proponent of having a dedicated like lead gen and marketing sales CRM. I know a lot of contractors will have like a project management type software that they kind of use as a CRM to hold information, but it's not really made for the lead gen marketing sales side of, a business, which is why, something specific as that you guys have is so important. So I'm sure like with new clients, you guys always probably see a lot of things that can be improved and need fixing and whatever else. What do you find are some of the biggest mistakes contractors are making when it comes to marketing their business online?
I think a lot of it is stagnation. Usually, it's a lot of folks who kind of like you talked about a little bit when talking about Google reviews. Is they maybe have set up their marketing, they've started, they've launched a website, they've made their Google business profile, but then they think they're done because they've made the thing and they haven't moved forward with it. Now
Mm-hmm.
more than ever, there's so much competition in the construction and home services space. You have to be moving forward actively all the time with your marketing, whether that's growing your website content, whether that is getting more reviews to try to outpace your competitors. It's the stagnation. It's the idea that I've made a marketing hire or a marketing purchase and I'm done with marketing now. And that's definitely not the case. One of the things that we try to communicate with our new clients when they come on is that we will help you with the website. We'll get these things going, but this is the website launch is not the end. It is the beginning of
Mm-hmm.
the process by which we are going to actively promote you over time. It's that over time activity that makes a difference between somebody who just sits, on page 3 or 4 of Google versus someone who shows up consistently in Google, someone who consistently shows up well in Google reviews, and
Mm-hmm.
contractors that overall perform well and earn more leads.
Yeah, marketing's definitely not like a one and done sort of thing. There's these big pieces like a website or a Google business profile that you're going to get in place, but you do need like some active management, some systems behind it. It doesn't have to necessarily be the owner. It could be, either an agency, but you're probably going to have some admin or even a marketing, manager on your team who is creating some content, asking for reviews and updating this stuff regularly and having that kind of fresh feel to the business. It really is a system and something that needs to be actively working, consistently over time for sure. So great insight there. Content is king nowadays. You just mentioned like, keeping things fresh and having those processes. Blogs, there's YouTube, there's podcasts, there's all the social media stuff that's been around for a long time now. Lots of contractors like don't have time for this, don't want to be, taking pictures or on camera. What's your response to that? And then what do you find is like the simplest way to start building some content that actually, drives some leads and isn't just something that looks good?
Yeah, I think a lot of that stems from the idea that, as most of the contractors that we work with, they're incredibly strong in their trade. They're maybe a little more uncomfortable in the marketing side of things. And particularly a lot in home services, a lot of our contractors fear that if they're talking about themselves, that it's kind of pompous, that it's asking too much of themselves. Really, the way I try to share it to our contractors and pitch it to our clients is that don't worry about selling you necessarily, but you're an expert. So you should show off what you've done, show off your product, show off your
Mhm.
service. And I think if you reframe it like that, less of look at me, I'm on camera, and more of look at my project, look at the things I've created, that makes it a little bit easier to jump into. For us, one of the things we recommend that's the easiest to do is just take a couple pictures of your work, especially, and if you've got a crew, if you're not comfortable with it, have someone on your team who's already tech savvy, who already has, they're the
Mhm.
guy in the office who always wants the nicest phone. Have them take the pictures for you. Your
Yep.
team can also help to contribute to your marketing. It doesn't have to be just you. But the
Mhm.
idea is capture pictures of your work, especially now with AI and ChatGPT. You could take pictures of your work. You could write out a couple bullet points and say, ChatGPT,
Yep.
write me a 2 paragraphs about the work I've done here.
Mhm.
And that is a great jumping off point for content that you can use in a whole bunch of places. That can be, if you want to take video, that could be a short form video. That could be something you put on YouTube. That could be content you put on your website, like a mini case study. That could be,
Yep.
and especially if you've got a review that pairs with it, that's great. You can take that content and put it on social media. That's also visually something that someone's really going to like on socials. So just the
Mhm.
first step of realizing it's not about highlighting you, it's about highlighting your expertise. And you have that already. So you don't have to be a marketing expert. You're already an expert in your industry. That's what you should push. And making that mind shift change, I think, is a really big help to get folks a little more
Mhm.
comfortable with, you know, talking more about themselves and promoting themselves without feeling like
Yep.
they're being pompous about it.
Yeah, great insights and being able to realize that people are interested in your business and what you're doing and they want to see your projects and learn about what's going on, right? And it's a great way to kind of keep in touch and keep focused. And it really doesn't take up a ton of time, especially with the tools like you mentioned nowadays with AI and things like that. One thing I found, like you mentioned, you could have you guys on site or whoever, take some pictures, just tell someone who's handy with a camera, hey, if you see something interesting or you guys complete something nice, or especially like at a finished project, take a bunch of pictures and just have a dedicated folder in your Google Drive or wherever you store files. And those could be like marketing pictures. And then you have an admin or marketing manager who goes through there, finds the good ones, customizes them a little bit, puts them out on social media with a bit of a write up. And it's really not a difficult thing to get set up. And, for me, it's like create a little SOP and a little training video, but really anybody who's a little bit tech savvy, that's really, they've grown up with this stuff, especially, the younger generation. It's a very easy thing to get in place. Now, you guys at Footbridge Media, you have like a flat fee pricing model, for your core. Why do you find that so important, especially, there's a lot of noise out there with marketing. There's a lot of marketing agencies that come and go, and some good, some bad. Can you talk a little bit about maybe about why that's so important? And then also for a contractor looking for an agency to work with, what should they be thinking about if they're ready to take that next step with their marketing?
Yeah, for us, the core of our pricing being, we don't have contracts, we don't have, surprise build fees, anything like that. A lot of other agencies start things off, and not that it's a bad thing, it's just how a lot of systems work, is that it's either contract based or it's very heavily weighted in the front. You've got to pay a lot of money in the beginning because there is a lot of work that happens in the beginning. Like I said, for us, we mitigate some of that because there's not as much of a research and development, phase for us, because we've done the research for 20 years at this point, and we continue to do it, but we're still learning. But it's, the core is there. But the 249 pricing, not having a contract, that's really important for us because we understand that contractors, especially if you're starting a new business, it's a really unsure time for you. You've got this bravado, you're excited to get going, but also there's some fear that's involved in starting a new business, and rightfully so. Anything that's scary is probably a little good for you. And for us, trying to make sure that we are easily accessible, that any contractor of any phase, we work with folks who are mom and pop shops who have just started, that someone who just got their first pressure washing unit. And then we work with folks who have dispatches and multiple trucks. No matter where you are in that space, having a program price that you can understand, that is going to happen, and number one, you can feel comfortable with starting, but number two, that you also know is kind of on the hook. We don't get paid for 12 months if we're not good for 12 months. We don't have a contract. So if we're getting paid, it's because you like us month over month over month. And we've had clients with us for over a decade based on that model. We're trying to prove to you that we're trying to grow collaboratively here. And we're not, just a quick money grab at the first month and then, minimal response as legally required for the next 11 months. We've actually seen a bunch of clients who work with us for years. They think that they're upgrading their marketing and they go somewhere else. And then we see them come back a year exactly later when their contract expires, because they've realized that, paying more isn't necessarily going to get you more. It's about finding a team that really works for you. I think at the end of the day, you need to have a team that is vetted online or vetted by folks that you know. There's so much social proof now that you can track down, looking at online reviews or what you have you, talking to folks in your industry, and to get those good referrals. Because there is a lot of space out there. There's a lot of noise in the space right now, like you talked about. There are so many new people getting in. I saw someone who was starting their own school community after being a contractor for like 6 months, which they may have found a couple of things that really worked for them, but at the same time, if they haven't existed as a company for a full year annual cycle, there are already challenges they don't know that they have to face yet, that they're teaching. So you need to have somebody who understands the industry, but also the marketing, but also the core discipline that you're looking for help for. And I think finding a resource like that and leaning on a resource like that outside of your company is also really smart. You don't necessarily have to hire on for every single job position that you need. Like you wouldn't hire an accountant on just because you have tax needs if you're a small company, just for taxes. In the same way that you don't necessarily need to hire a web development team because you need a website. You can hire a marketing third-party agency and have someone who has the expertise, but that doesn't cost you a full salary and benefits worth of cost at the same time.
Yeah, I find your service is well aligned. It's really about long term, working with a company to help them grow and growing together and adding more services as needed. And yeah, I've definitely seen the impact of a poor marketing agency. And what would you say? Let's say someone starts with an agency. What kind of, I know this is $1 million question. Like, what kind of results should they kind of be expecting? Obviously, it matters on the service and how much spend they're putting into ads and stuff like that. But at what time is it like, this isn't working? Maybe I should look for something different.
I generally say, especially or if you're talking about organic optimization, showing up on Google and things like that, there's a couple short-term wins and long-term wins. Google business profiles, you should probably probably be able to make some positive movement with that over the course of, I would say, no more than 3 months. You should start to see something, especially if they're helping you with citations, if they are helping you, they're providing you with review automation or review management services to help to build those Google numbers. That's a huge thing. And that means they also know how to optimize the listing itself. So I think
Yeah.
within roughly 3 months, you should see some movement there. When it comes to organic optimization or showing up in in ChatGPT type searches, that might be longer. That might be more 6 months to a year before you start to see the needle really moving well,
Mhm.
specifically for Google. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'd say you got to look at it in stages. And also, if you're using paid advertising, that should be more immediate. So
Mhm.
there's the short term goals of advertising. You should see those results within weeks. Really, I'd say within the first 60 days, you should get a good idea for your ROI at that point, or at least be
Yeah.
locking in a goal for your ROI at that point. Because the first
Mhm.
30 days of any ad campaign is a lot of learning,
Yeah.
and then days 30 to 60 are pretty pivotal. They're pretty important because at that point you should have a good recipe down, and you should be able to say, okay, we figured it out. We can make, if we put in this many dollars, we should get out this many leads. So I think depending on what you're looking at, there's a couple different kind of milestones to look at.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for sharing that. I think that's really important to, first off, with any, working relationship, have expectations clear, but also, some contractors not being overly familiar with what should be expected, how long these things can take sometimes to start to pay off and the results that they can see. With ads, obviously that's a much quicker time horizon for getting leads, but I feel like with ads, as you mentioned, there is this kind of accuracy to find good, like quality leads and find the right fit and get those cost of clicks or cost per lead in a reasonable margin. What do you find is normal? Let's say someone starting with the Google or Facebook ads or both, as far as like lead quality or cost per lead, what's a normal kind of trajectory for that?
I think it's kind of tough because Google, most of Google advertising is essentially auction. It's essentially a
Mhm.
bid-based system because it depends on how many other companies are trying to get those same exact types of leads, trying to get those same target queries to show up.
Mhm.
So it's really tough to say. I mean, depending on the industry, especially even with LSAs, just looking at local service ads,
Mhm.
we've seen over the last, I'd say, 12 to 18 months, a big shift in increases in costs for LSAs. It still can be very profitable, but we've seen a big shift in the increases of costs for some LSAs, for some industries like garage door folks, for example. That's for some
Yeah.
reasons really blown up and become very expensive. So I think a lot of it is understanding your model, your business, and also understanding that ads may not be for you. For
Mhm.
some industries, HVAC is another great example for that. It can be incredibly expensive per lead. You could be talking about, if you're in a major metro and you're targeting installations, you could be spending hundreds of dollars on a lead. But if that converts and it makes sense for you, and you've got a good closing process, you've got good numbers on that side of the equation, it might make sense for you.
Mhm.
Ads, I think, are often suggested as kind of like the universal panacea of like you can fix it all with ads. But I think
Yeah.
you still have to be really careful of understanding your costs and a realistic ROI. The
Mhm.
cost of actually running your ad, the cost that you're spending directly on the ad spend itself.
Yeah.
There are tolerances there that you've got to make sure that you're aware of. I think everyone should try ads, but I don't think necessarily everyone should continue to do ads if you find that the return just isn't there.
Yeah. Can you give us maybe either high level or breakdown depending on what you feel is good, like client acquisition cost of how a contractor could figure out what, is it spending $100 on a lead worth it, or is 500 or $20? How can they kind of get some ideas as far as scope of how much, where it's, profitable to be spending money to get a client?
Sure. I think a lot of that has to do with, like you said, is the tracking side of things, is understanding number one, make sure you know the source of your lead so that you can more accurately identify that. And that's attribution can be very difficult when it comes to marketing in general. But as long as you know you're tracking that lead flow, it's got to make sense for your identifying your average ticket, making sure you
Mhm.
know what your usual profit is off of that kind of job, taking into account your closing rate and the number of leads that you're getting in to figure out,
Yeah.
okay, this is what your actual acquisition cost is. So there's the cost per lead, there's the cost per click, there's all these numbers that marketers or the agencies will throw around.
Yeah.
But ultimately, your cost per client acquisition is the most important one there.
Mhm.
Understanding the math of it cost me this much money just to get my message out there, and how much is it worth to your business based on your cost for operation, for what it costs. Are you is it just you and you've got a small organization? Then that's fine. But if you have a larger business and you're paying benefits and insurance, the cost for your employees is probably going to go up too. So I think it's really important to understand that the smaller the cost per click, the cost per lead is not the same as cost per client acquisition at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely. Again, a good reason to know your numbers. Also a good reason, as mentioned earlier, to have a proper like lead gen marketing sales CRM outside of your regular project management software, because you're gonna have to pull these analytics from different sources, but you'll have that data as far as leads to closing ratios and sources and different things like that you can track in a good CRM. And really important to have that data available so you know what's working for you, what's your kind of break evens as far as what you're willing to spend, and essentially what you can double down on as well. If something's working and you know it's like costing less, then go all out on that. There's going to be a point where spending more is not going to generate more. But I've seen this with clients where they're paying for ads or different marketing resources, and just with taking a basic look, it becomes very clear. Like you're spending, $20 for a click here, and here you're spending like $3. So why don't we take some of this budget and put it over here? And you can double leads, spend less, and it seems like a no-brainer. But unless you're really doing the math, or have a good marketing agencies that's tracking this stuff for you, you really don't know, and you could be kind of throwing money out the window for sure. So you worked with a lot of different clients. Can you tell us a little bit about the client journey? If a specific client that you've worked with, what maybe got them interested in starting with you, what that onboarding or first week, month process looks like, and then the results that they achieved with you over time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think in general, when folks come to us, whether it's from referral or what have you, for finding us through our content like this, one of the first things they do with us is they have basically their onboarding meeting with us. We get the core information that we need to know to understand who the contractor is, the services they provide, and the markets in which they provide those services. Those are kind of the three big details. And then from there, that starts off the design and build part of the journey. And we try to, as much as possible, to take care of all the heavy lifting as far as we can. We understand that contractors are busy. They would rather not do their own marketing. That's why they've called us. So we try
Yeah.
to reduce the amount that they have to do as much as possible. So we'll get them in, we'll get them through the design phase, where we show them examples of what we propose the new site's going to look like. And once we get
Yeah.
the thumbs up there, then we take care of all the content development for our clients. We obviously love to get input as much as we can for about us type content or
Mhm.
specific processes that maybe they have that are unique to them. But still, as much as we can, we try to take care of all the content creation on our own. We launch the site with them, and we're doing a lot behind the scenes at the same time. We're working to help to make sure their Google business profile is accurately set up. We're setting them up with review management software. We're introducing
Mhm.
them to that CRM that we've talked about. That's kind of a big hub for our own internal communication, but also with communicating with your clients outside of Footbridge. And then ultimately we get to that launch phase. Usually it takes about 4 to 5 weeks from client design approval through site launch, where we get to go live. And at that
Yeah.
point, that's when they're really introduced to their marketing consultant team and the folks that are going to be with them on an ongoing basis to try to grow the business, to direct the marketing plan, to help them to identify their goals and then where they want to take their business. And then from those goals, again, kind of customize that marketing plan so that
Mhm.
we aren't overspending in the wrong places, that we're putting the funds in the spots that make the most sense for growing our clients.
Yeah, wonderful. So we will put links in the description to Footbridge Media. Feel free to reach out to Chris and his team there if you'd like to get help with your marketing or learn more about their services. Definitely reach out. They will give you some of the best service and help you can expect from a marketing agency, and help you get some of these great results that they've mentioned with so many clients. And it's really, you've repeated this process so many times that it's investing in marketing is essential for a growing business and a healthy business. And it's just how it is. Yes, you can do this stuff yourself, but why not get that off your plate and get an expert in your corner to be able to get this stuff in place for you. So Chris, can you maybe give us we've talked about Google, ads, Google profiles, the importance of your website. Can you maybe give a few quick tips for those that are like, wow, this is a lot of stuff. We're, a little bit lost in this whole online online marketing, what would be a few specific tips or things people could look at to kind of just get started or help get set up a little bit before they're going to spend money on marketing or advertising, because you don't want to spend a whole bunch of money if the marketing is not, branding is not in place, which I know you guys help with. But what would be a couple of like little quick tips or tricks that you can suggest for contractors?
I think some of the simplest things you could do is number one is incorporate asking for review into every single contract, every single client that you work with. I think when you and we talked about how sometimes our contractors are a little afraid of making those asks of marketing to promote themselves and put themselves out there. But just like any other muscle, the more that you work it out, the more it gets comfortable to use. I think asking for review, it's 100% free. You can do it on every single job and it costs you no money. And it
Yeah.
can yield you such great results. If you
Mhm.
have one more review than the number 3 person in the map packs in Google, chances are you're going to show up over them. So it's super important to ask for the review in person, and just like when the iron's hot, when you're finishing up, you're doing the final sweep through with the client.
Mhm.
Talk to them and say, hey, have we satisfied you? Have we completed this project to your liking? They're going to say yes. They're going to be happy. Then ask for the review at that point when they're at their peak happy. And again, there are systems that are make it in place that are easier to send links and whatnot. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, asking for the review in person,
Mhm.
person to person, is so influential in helping someone to act, but also in getting those reviews that are going to grow your business. So that's a
Yeah.
huge simple one there. And number two,
Mhm.
I think, is having a proper referral program. An incentivized referral program is really important.
Mhm.
Essentially, you can grow your sales team without growing your sales team. With an incentivized sales referral program, you're going to give money or a gift card or whatever to the
Yeah.
person who refers you.
Mhm.
But the great thing is you don't pay them unless the other person actually signs up and does the work with you. So if you're giving, it's, we talked about cost per lead, cost per client acquisition. If you're
Mhm.
giving a homeowner $100 for referring you for an HVAC installation, let's just say, that's probably lower than any other cost for client acquisition that you can get. And it's guaranteed you only ever pay it when you get the lead completed, when you get the job completed.
Yeah.
So I think
Mhm.
having a method for reviews and having a incentivized referral program, those are two
Mhm.
very simple things that effectively cost you nothing. If you're running a referral program, just include that cost into your next job and it's paid for itself. It costs you $0 effectively.
Yeah.
So those two things cost you $0, but they can help you to really grow your business in a way that is like synergistic, in a way that way more grows your business way faster than the effort you had to put in to do it.
Definitely. Oh, those are like top-notch suggestions for sure. The review thing, totally agree. In person, you need to ask for it in person after you've completed the project. That's when their happiness and excitement is at its peak. So that's definitely time to ask for it, not, a month later. So, I mean, if you have to and you've got past clients, definitely give them a ring and ask if they can write a review. But any new clients, strike while the iron's hot, as you mentioned. And I think another thing is what I've learned is you need to follow up, because some people will say yes, but you just completed the project. They've got other things on their mind. It's low in their set of priorities probably to write your review, even though they want to and have said they do. So follow up in a week or a month or whatever, and you probably need to follow up a couple of times potentially before they will actually write the review. And often they'll be like, "Yeah, I forgot," whatever. And offer to get on the call with them or whatever you need to do to really get those reviews, because as you mentioned, it'll get you higher in the Google rankings there. It'll also, you can repurpose that review for the website. You can do a social media post. Hey, look what our new client, we just completed their amazing project, said about us. So you can reuse content across a lot of different mediums for things like that. And then the referral program, every client should turn into two new clients is the ideal situation. So if you do a great job and you have that referral program, you've spent the money on advertising and marketing to find that client and do that job. Now turn that around and have it, continue to be this kind of ongoing force of leads and sales, as you mentioned. What I find too is when someone refers a lead to you, even if it's not a great lead or it doesn't turn into a sale, always make sure you super appreciate them, and even potentially, depending on your business model, maybe send them a $20 gift card or $10 gift card just as appreciation, because as you know, it's probably costing you anywhere from 5 to 20 to $100 for a lead, and it could be even multiple hundreds of dollars for a sale of a client. So to be able to pay someone to refer you, you're not really out any money. It's saving you a lot of money that you would have spent on advertising and marketing. So that in tandem with the marketing, it just it really expands businesses really quick. So thanks so much for coming on here, Chris. You've been a wealth of knowledge and inspiration, and really appreciate you sharing, all the great information today.
Thank you so much for having me, Derek.